Help me reach 2,000 subscribers. When Emma first said it, her voice was calm, too calm. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the same spot where we used to plan our future, talk about vacations we couldn't afford, and laugh about who burned dinner worse. But that night there was no laughter. Only silence heavy enough to crush the air between us. She set her mug down, looked at me and said, "Intimacy with you has faded. I want to open the relationship." For a second I thought she was joking. My brain refused to accept the words. But then I saw it, the way her eyes flickered with guilt, like she already knew what she was doing was wrong but had convinced herself it wasn't. I didn't shout. I didn't ask who. I just sat there, staring at the woman I'd built my life around, realizing that somewhere between the long work hours, the tired nights, and the quiet drifting we'd lost something. She waited for me to react, anger, denial, something. But I simply said, "Okay." It wasn't surrender. It was clarity. The kind that comes when the storm finally settles and you can see what's been broken all along. Her lips parted, surprise flashing across her face. "Wait, you're not mad?" I gave a small laugh, one that didn't sound like mine. "Emma, if you need someone else to feel what we used to have, then I guess you should go find it." She frowned. "You're saying that like it doesn't matter to you." "It does," I said. "But maybe not in the way you think." For years I'd been the one trying to keep us together. The one apologizing for things I didn't do, for feelings she didn't have. I thought love was about endurance, holding on through the hard parts. But maybe love also meant knowing when you were the only one holding on. That night she packed a small bag. She didn't cry. Neither did I. She kissed my cheek, polite, almost mechanical, and said, "This doesn't mean I don't love you." I nodded. "It just means you love yourself more right now." When the door closed behind her, the silence didn't hurt. Felt freeing. Because for the first time in years I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't begging for scraps of affection. I was just me, and that was enough. The first few days were quiet, eerily so. I went to work, came home, made dinner, watched the same shows we used to, and tried not to glance at the empty chair across from me. It's strange how quickly you get used to the absence of someone you thought you couldn't live without. Emma texted once or twice. Just polite check-ins. "Hope you're eating well." Or "Remember to water the plants." Nothing that sounded like regret. Nothing that sounded like love. I didn't ask where she was or who she was with. I didn't need to. The distance between us wasn't measured in miles anymore. It was measured in what we no longer said. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened her social media. There she was, smiling, hair down, that same spark I hadn't seen in months. In the picture she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her, his arm around her waist, their bodies too close to mistake for friends. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for the anger to rise. But it didn't. Instead, a strange calm washed over me. Because in that moment, I realized she hadn't found something new. She had simply returned to the part of herself that needed constant validation, attention, novelty. That was never me. A few days later, she showed up at the house unannounced. Her hair was damp from the rain, her eyes darting around like she wasn't sure if she should be there. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside and let her in. She looked around the house, noticing things, the rearranged furniture, the missing photos from the hallway, the calmness that didn't used to exist. "It feels different here," she said softly. "It is," I replied. For a while we sat in silence. Then she whispered, "I didn't think you'd actually be okay with it." I shrugged. "You wanted freedom, Emma. I just gave you what you asked for." Her voice trembled. "But you didn't fight for me." That made me smile. Not out of cruelty but clarity. You don't fight for someone who's already halfway out the door. Tears welled in her eyes, and for a split second, I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with. Not the version who chased excitement, but the one who once believed in his. But that version was gone. And maybe so was I. A week passed after that night. She texted once more, a message that read, "Can we start over?" I stared at it for a long time. The old me, the man who used to bend, beg, and bleed to keep love alive, might have said yes. But that man had learned something painful and liberating. Sometimes love is just another word for control. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a walk around the quiet neighborhood. The air was cool, and for the first time in a long while, my mind wasn't buzzing with what-ifs. I'd stopped waiting for closure. Maybe that was closure itself. The next day, I packed a few of her remaining things into a box. The perfume she left on the dresser, her old sketchbook, the pair of glasses she only wore when reading. I drove to her new place and left them by the door. No note. No confrontation. Just silence, the kind she never understood but always deserved. 2 days later, she showed up at my office. I was in the middle of a meeting when my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first, but when I walked outside, there she was waiting by the parking lot. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that comes from realizing you've ruined something permanent chasing something temporary. I thought this would make me happy, she whispered. But it doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It just feels empty. I nodded slowly. That's the thing about open doors, Emma. Sometimes the wind takes you somewhere you never meant to go. Her voice cracked. Can we fix this? I took a deep breath, searching for any trace of the man who once couldn't imagine a world without her. But he wasn't there anymore. No, I said gently. We can't fix something you chose to break. She wiped her tears, looking at me as if trying to memorize the face of the man she'd underestimated. And maybe that's what hurt her most. Not losing me, but realizing I wouldn't chase her this time. As she walked away, I didn't feel anger or victory. Just peace. The kind that comes from finally choosing yourself. When I got home, I deleted her contact and sat in the quiet, realizing something I wish I'd known years ago. Love doesn't die when someone leaves. It dies when you stop respecting yourself to keep them. And that night, I slept like a man who had finally let go.